As excited as I was to return here to London, especially Savile Row, I think one of the things that I've been most excited about, that I've been most looking forward to, is really kicking off this process of having Tony Gaziano make a pair of bespoke shoes for me. Now, we had my bespoke measurements last week, and today is the next step in that process, which is the first fitting. Join me as we walk inside and experience this incredible craft. Hey, Tony, so nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to see you, Kirby.
Yeah. Thank you so much for getting this turned out so quickly. And again, I couldn't be more excited to finally be here for first fitting with the master, Tony Gaziano. So
Well, you're too cool.
This is exciting. So talk to us a little bit about what they are. I mean, this, of course, is the first fitting of a bespoke pair of shoes you're making for me.
That's correct, yep.
So, of course, last week we filmed the bespoke measurements. Right, you would have gone back, you would have carved the last.
That's correct,
and then had these fitting shoes made in the workshop.
That's right, yep. So, yeah, I spent the weekend working on the last, which I don't normally do, so... Yeah.
Thank you.
I passed these on to, the guy that runs the bespoke department.
Okay.
We cut the patterns and we made up the fitting and we finished it off, kind of during Wednesday. So that it was ready for you to come in today and try them on. Basically, what it is we use scrap leather, and so this is second grade leather that we wouldn't normally put in an actual finished pair of shoes. And then just for the sake of balance and help with the fit, we put like a cork sole and a cork heel on it. So really at this stage, it's not too much about the aesthetics of the shoe. It's more about how the shoe fits. Once we get to the point that we know that it fits right, then we refine it slightly and start working on the aesthetics a little bit more.
Yeah. So what would be different in this shoe versus a finished shoe? I mean, of course, the cork bottom, this is glued together, but it still has quite a bit of structure in it. I mean, it's got all the hard countering.
Yep.
So what is in this that, again, we're looking to validate?
So again, it's very similar components to the actual finished shoe. There's a leather stiffener in the heel here, which still has to be carved and scarved by hand. We use the same toe puff of what we put in the made-to-order shoes.
Okay.
And again, it's all hand-lasted. So it has the feel and the presence of the actual finished shoe, so that we can really gauge how that feels on the foot as a finished product.
Yeah, and as a Lastmaker, what is it that you're really looking to ascertain from this stage of the first fitting?
So really, from a first fitting, I would like it to be at least 70%, good fit-wise.
Yeah, okay.
And then from here, it really depends upon how complicated the foot is and the customer's expectations that we might go through another 2 fittings after this to kind of get it perfected. Occasionally, we open up, we can't see anything that's wrong with it. We maybe make 1 or 2 really small alterations and we choose to kind of make the shoe up.
Yeah. So, well, that kind of brings me to a question that we get asked quite often. And something that honestly we really haven't spoken enough about on this channel. And that is, what are realistic expectations for a first pair of shoes, first pair of bespoke shoes?
So, it varies on the client because some clients have very complicated feet, takes a little bit longer to get that perfected, but we go through this fitting stage for a reason. So I think really, when we present an actual finished shoe, that shoe really should be 95, 97% perfect in a standing position when the client puts it on. There's always going to be a little bit of teething problems when the client wears them throughout a whole day, throughout a week, and finds that might be a tiny little bit of tweaking there. That's to be expected. But when he slips them on and he stands in them, he shouldn't really be told that they will ease out with time and things like that. He should be comfortable in a standing position.
Really? Okay. So, that traditional kind of like break-in, bloody your heels the first week, and then in a bespoke pair of shoes, that shouldn't be something that you're having to
Yeah, exactly. There's a difference between material breaking and stretching a shoe out with your foot. You know, that shouldn't stretching a shoe out with your foot shouldn't be part of the deal, if you know what I mean. But you know, obviously these shoes get made in all different kinds of material, from suede to cordovan. They've all got different ways of kind of loosening and breaking in around your foot. So there's a little bit of patience required with that. But you know, that comes with actually walking. When you put your foot into a shoe, it should still fit all the contours and the shapes, you know, 90% correct.
And a beautiful bespoke shoe, I mean, again, whenever you're wearing it, you know, like the pair that you're wearing, I mean, really, to the eye, one of the things that should differentiate a well-made bespoke shoe is, correct me if I'm wrong, really the absence of wrinkles.
Yes.
And creasing.
Definitely. You know, wrinkles is all to do with getting depth correct. You know, if you're taking a bespoke measure and all you're doing is taking the outline, you're only taking 30% of the information that's needed. I don't know if you can remember when we actually took the original measure, we used a profile gauge to actually kind of see how much depth is required around here. So, you know, this should fit flush to the depth of your foot, even at this stage when we try it on. If that depth is not quite right, that's when you get excess wrinkles.
So it's all about the distribution of volume, right, and the fit, of course, so that whenever you're standing, the shoe should sit flat. There shouldn't be any excessive creasing, and again, that's what makes a bespoke shoe, you know, so beautiful.
Exactly, yeah. You know, it maintains its smooth aesthetic through wears and through years, and you know, it should maintain that kind of tidy look.
And that's one of the things. I mean, as we've spoken with a lot of bespoke makers on this trip, bespoke suit makers, bespoke shirt makers, bespoke shoe makers, I think one of the big things I'm left with is that, you know, the handwork in a bespoke product doesn't exist for the sake of the handwork. You know, exists for the integrity and the durability to make something long-lasting, reliable.
Exactly,
But also, a properly executed bespoke product is one that should always look great whenever you're using it.
Yes.
So not that it only looks great whenever you're standing still and not walking, but through using it, through living in it, that it still maintains that bespoke elegance.
Yes, exactly. No area should be forgotten, whether it's fit, aesthetic, design, materials, and the actual stitching, craftsmanship, lasting, all those things should be at that top level in every scenario.
Well, great. Well, let's try them on.
Okay, good. Take a seat. So let me take those for you. And just lift your heel.
Thank you.
Okay.
After a long week in London, they need a bit of a polish.
Yes, they're looking pretty good, to be fair. Okay, the moment of truth.
You can hear the fit of a
there's a certain sound.
Shoes.
And you can feel the rush of air coming out of the shoe. Okay. Now, I think at this stage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you lace them up because you know the tolerance of what you like. So. Okay. Generally, what I do is leave probably a little bit of extra length so that you know, when I check open and see inside a little bit later on, how much I can refine the toe shape for. You know, and I think this is a great stage for really kind of extracting the information from the customer about exactly what he's looking for. You know, whether he's looking for a more classic shoe that's a little bit shorter, or whether he's looking for more a contemporary shoe that's a little bit longer. So all things can be changed at this stage.
Okay, great. Well.
All right. So do you want to just stand up for me? And I'm just going to have a quick look, and then I'll get some comments back from you. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to roll your trouser up a little bit. So, first things first, one thing that I notice, even in the standing position, that there's no awkward creases around there, which means the toes are in a nice position and the foot's not pulling the shoe around in an awkward way. So normally what I do at this stage is I check around the backs to make sure that it's flush to the foot. It's tucked underneath the ankle bone quite nicely, and it comes up and laces together as we want. Now the lacing at this stage for me is open a little bit wide. Normally what I like to see at the top eyelets is a distance of about 5 millimeters. So 5 millimeters gives you really the correct distance to be out, because the lacings, they will close up through wear every time you tighten them.
Yeah, because the leather does stretch.
Exactly, yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
And you have to kind of allow for that kind of little bit of stretch in that area. And what it does, maybe that stretch is about 2 millimeters, so it allows the closure to go up to around about 3 millimeters, which is a nice space for it to do. We also have to take into consideration that the foot swells up and down throughout the day as well. So,
yeah. And so really, I mean, what you don't want at this stage, I mean, just as much as not wanting it to be too gaping, right, or too wide, you also don't want it to be totally flush tight.
No, because by the time you've worn them, probably over 6 months, they will close and slightly lap over, and that's something that's quite difficult to actually change without completely remaking the shoe.
Really? Okay.
All right. So I'm just going to make a note on the side here that we need to close this area up by 5 millimeter.
And is that more on the last or the pattern?
That's more on the last. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I need to do is I need to increase the volume of the last around the lacing area, which means that when we remake the fitting or the shoe, then we can close that up a little bit.
Yeah, that's right, because whenever you've got the upper fully lasted, the facings are sewn flush, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right, yeah. So, okay, so some of the areas of the foot I can only really gauge once I cut them open with a knife and can see what's kind of going on inside the shoe. But first impressions really are that it fits quite nicely around there. Maybe a little bit flush around the outside of the foot here. The joint fits nicely. The depth is quite nice, but probably could shallow that out just a little bit. And the same with this foot as well. So there's a little bit too much depth across the vamps there, which you can see when I kind of push that crease up. The backs are fitting really nice.
How do you gauge, I mean, the back of the heel, I think on a bespoke pair of shoes is one of the most important elements.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, most problems that people have with ready-to-wear shoes is the heel is too large and not shaped enough. It's what allows it to slip. It can be what creates blisters.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how do you assess that? I mean, how do you gauge that the heel's correct?
So basically, what you'll see is when I took the measure, I do like a side profile, and it gives me the actual shape of your heel. Not only that, I use the measure gauge to kind of fit around the top part of your heel, so it actually shows me how wide it is in that area. Okay. Again, all these things are down to the customer's what he's looking for out of the shoe. Not everybody likes that kind of clamped effect. Some people like it being a little bit easier if they've got sensitive feet. So, bespoke is not always about what I want to make you. It's about what you want me to make you.
Yeah, it's not always about getting it as close fitting as possible.
No, it's about really kind of servicing the customer's needs.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So normally at this stage, what I do is ask the customer to have a little walk around and just give me a little bit of feedback.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I can kind of notice right out of the gate is the arch of this foot seems a little high and a little too far back.
Okay.
So I'm feeling it. It feels like it's more right under kind of the front of my heel.
Yep.
Right, versus, if it was maybe a few millimeters or a cm farther forward, it would really be kind of under my arch.
Right. Okay.
It makes it feel high, but that could just be because it's shifted too far back.
Yeah. Again, I think this is an area again that I will cut a hole in.
Okay.
And that'll show me
Exactly where it sits.
exactly where the heel is sitting.
But the right foot, feels great. The arch it's got good arch support. It's not so much arch support that I feel it kind of lifting my foot up.
Yep.
But it's very comfortable. Walk around a little more. Yeah, very comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'll take some notes down in a second. Again, I get this little bit of creasing. We can kind of reduce that around this area. A couple of other, it's a pretty good fitting for a first fitting because we're looking at kind of small tweaks in certain areas. I think that you can normally tell at this stage, how well it's going for the customer as well. So, it's looking pretty good. So what we'll do is we'll open this up now, check this arch area. I'd like to see how far back your heel is sitting in the back, and then we're making obviously notes about the instep. All right.
Great.
So yeah, let's
take them off.
Yep. Actually, I can give that to you. You can slip that on. So we'll just slip this one on now as well.
Yeah, you could really kind of appreciate the work that goes into the hard counter, seeing the shoes cut open. I mean, how much thicker? I mean, if you look at this right here, I mean, it's a pretty substantial hard counter.
Yeah.
Is that thicker than what would be used on a traditional ready-to-wear shoe?
I think, no, that is about the same as a ready-to-wear, made-to-order shoe. But yeah, it has to be substantial, you know, because that's what's giving you the support. But again, that can be kind of tailored to, you know, customer specification. That, you know, if he feels that he wants the shoe being a little bit less structured and a little bit less stiff, then we can make a thinner. Yeah. Stiffer than that.
Yeah, because one of the hallmarks of a bespoke shoe is the fact that, you know, traditionally on ready-to-wear that you'd have the hard countering right here at the heel.
Yep.
But on bespoke, it really comes all the way under the arch to about right, I mean, pretty far forward from traditional ready-to-wear standards.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, it's what we call a long inside stiffener. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it works best when a customer's got a flat arch, just to give him that extra support and to give the shoe the real kind of guts that it needs to kind of stand up to the body weight. Mm-hmm. So we don't do it for every bespoke shoe because sometimes people can find it a little bit uncomfortable, but we gauge that on customer.
Yeah. Okay. So,
all right.
Stand up?
Yeah, please. Yep. Okay, so now we've cut the holes in the shoe that allows me to gauge what length and how the heel fits, even kind of whether we need a little bit more room on these outside toes. So the first thing that I'm going to look for is the length. So the length is probably, you know, on the right foot is about right. Probably could just do with a little bit more on the left foot. Mostly this is aesthetic. And it doesn't really, you know, alter the fit at all. Also, what this allows me to do is, because you're very shallow around the outside of your foot, mm-hmm. So, you know, when you look at your last, it kind of comes from toe to small toe in like an angle. And I can see from here that, you know, I've got the right amount of depth, because you've got a little bit of a stick-up toe there as well. So it was very important to get that kind of depth right. And hopefully you felt that, you know, before we cut that hole open, it wasn't really giving you many problems, and it was still quite comfortable. Okay, so, you know, I tend to, this information I'm marking here, I tend to kind of check when I get back to the workshop to, you know, to kind of analyse, to see if we can alter a little bit more length, what kind of shape that we're looking for, and those type of things. Next thing that I'll check is the small toes. So I've just got to go down on the floor there because I tend to look at the insole. Again, your joint is flush in here, so I know there's enough room in there, but we could probably add just a little bit more to those small toe knuckles there. Okay. And did you feel a little bit of pressure on the...
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to a rather tight-fitting shoe, so, you know, and I'm not particularly sensitive.
No.
I would defer to...
Yeah, it's probably slightly over the insole, so I'll probably just give you a little bit more room around those areas. Okay. And the same on here.
And you're just marking it down, what, 2 millimeters, is that?
Yeah, so I'll again, that's roughly what I see, but I will still revert back to the original measure and measure it again to kind of see if that's accurate or not before.
So even after you do the first, you know, draft of the last, you're constantly referencing back to those measurements.
Yeah, the original measurements, definitely. So all the notes that I make here are not necessarily the things that I'll do, that I will check and analyse them again, and it has to be, you know, partly this experience and partly back to the original measure. So one of the things you can see here, just a little bit of creasing around that area. That's probably due to the fact there's just a little bit too much volume in that area. So again, that's something I'll take back to the original measure. I'll look at the profile gauge that we took and to see if I can really kind of bring that down a little bit to minimize the creasing. But considering you've had a little walk around in them, it shows you that the depth is not that bad.
Yeah.
They wouldn't really crease much more than this, so they would still keep them looking nice and tidy.
Okay.
All right. So now if you can just open your feet a little bit like this, because I'm just going to check the arch. Again, I think the comment mostly was on this foot.
Yes.
And you felt that the arch was coming back a little bit too far into your heel. Needed to kind of come forward there a little bit. And I can see it kind of there.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm going to kind of mark that as well. Again, that is something that I can only really visually see when I get back to compare to the original measure. So, but I can see that from your heel to your to the inside of your foot, you're actually quite flat. Okay. So you probably feel that arch a little bit more than you should do. So we'll probably look at that and kind of flatten it out a little bit.
Okay. The positioning, I mean, so the positioning of it kind of within the shoe, forward or back, you think is fine. You just would flatten it out a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, at the moment, the little bit of arch support that we put in there basically has come too far back into the heel.
Okay.
So, you know, we'll just kind of bring that forward by lessening the curve in the area so that it starts curving in front of your heel instead of a little bit further back like it's doing now.
Okay.
All right. So the last check, if you can just spin yourself round so I can just look at the heel. Again, the heel should be sitting quite flush at the back. This area here is all the stiffness support that goes in between the lining and the outside. So we're really looking at that area here, which looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit further forward on this one. Probably says to me actually there's probably a little bit too much angle in the back. So I might kind of lessen that back counter shape a little bit, and it will allow your foot to sit slightly further back in the shoe, kind of filling that void up a little bit. Again, I'll mark it on there so I can visually see when I get back, and we'll compare it to the measure. I think other than that, you know, they're you know,
pretty good first fitting.
Yeah, I think they're fairly small alterations for a first fitting, you know, and I think that, you know, the next stage should be pretty much perfect.
Yeah, great. So after this, I mean, you'll take this back, and then in altering the last, you're either building it up, which would be putting the small little leather bits on it, or carving it down with the file.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's probably not a bad idea just to be on the safe side, just to have another fitting, just to make sure that these small alterations work. And what I probably would do is let you have the fitting, let you walk around in it for a couple of hours, so that you can get the experience of how the last is going to feel through wear.
Yes.
And then we can communicate and see if there's any additional checks.
So that next shoe you probably wouldn't cut open like this, but kind of leave it with me? Or would you send it ahead of time, let me walk around in it, and then whenever we meet, cut it open and take a second look?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
all right.
Great. Wasn't that great? One of the things that I love most about the Bespoke experience is the process. To be back here in London on Savile Row, and to have Tony Gaziano not only take the measurements, but be able to produce a first fitting before I leave, really has been something remarkable. I have to say, I'm really looking forward to receiving this pair of shoes. To have Tony Gaziano, someone so renowned, so well respected, and honestly so famous in the shoe industry, be able to make a bespoke pair of shoes for me is really something incredible. I'm Kirby Allison, and I love to help the well-dressed acquire and care for their wardrobes while discovering the world of quality, craftsmanship, and tradition. Thanks for watching.